Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Entitled People. Story 1. Sorry you feel entitled to service after hours. Obligatory on mobile warning. Now that that's out of the way. This just happened last night and it's not that long of a story, but I figured I'd share anyways since the interaction put a smile on my face. Here's hoping it does the same for you guys. I currently work nights at a gas station/convenience store in the US. Thankfully this one isn't open 24/7 and is open from 5:30 am to 11 pm. By the time 11 o'clock rolled around, I was just finishing up with the few remaining customers. As the last customer is walking out the door, I head there to close up for tonight. Before I could do so, in walks a middle-aged man asking if he can buy cigarettes. I should note that this same guy was in here earlier, buying a lighter about 5 minutes before we closed. He seemed a tiny bit abrasive when picking out which lighter he wanted, but I just chalked it up to him having a bad day and wanting a smoke but finding himself with no lighter. After he walks in asking if he can buy a pack of smokes, I told him that we're closed for tonight. He's insisting, saying "Come in, it'll be real quick." Now, keep in mind, if he had come in even just a minute before closing time, I still would have likely helped him. However, it was already around 10 minutes after closing. I've got a store to clean for next morning, and I was already pushing it serving the last few customers past 11, any more after them would get me in trouble with management. I again tell him that we're closed and just as I'm about to apologize for the inconvenience, he gets this pissed off look on his face and says, "Oh, you're a fucking dickhead." It was too perfect. I was waiting for the right opportunity to bust out this retort. With my best matter-of-fact tone, I said, "Yup, I'm a real bastard. You're not getting your cigs though." After that, he walked out saying something else, but I couldn't hear him over me saying "have a nice night" and locking the doors behind him. I can neither confirm nor deny that I was smirking to myself in the end. Story 2. Entitled Uncle and his kids tried to steal my expensive watches during a party. I, 17M, passed from 10th with a great percentage, and my parents decided to throw a party for my friends and close relatives and cousins. It was at home only. Many of cousins, grandparents, best friends, uncle aunts, all were there. Now I'm a person you would call fashion freak and like to keep a wide range of watches, accessories and shoes to match with my clothes. My accessories, except my watches, are not that expensive, but my watches are. They are quite expensive for someone aged me and even older than me, but most of them are gifts and prizes from tournaments I play. My uncle, entitled uncle, is not really well off as he decided to have a large family, and by that I mean 8 kids, 6 girls, 2 boys. He lives in an area with high cost of living and often asks for cash from his brothers and we'll never return, but not really large amounts. Now most of his kids are younger than me and quite well behaved, but the oldest 2, 18M, 16F, I will refer to them as EK, are total crazy people. I didn't want to invite those 2 but had to. So, now getting to the main part. During the 0ARTY, my older cousin EK asks me where the washroom is. This was odd because this wasn't the first time he was there, but I told him the directions. My room was in the way to the bathroom. I live in my room and have all my things out: watches, chains, rings and shoes, etc. As I am the only kid and no one usually enters anybody's room since me and my parents are always out for studies and work. After some time I saw my uncle and smaller EK also going towards that direction. This was extremely odd and I went behind them and I saw what I never wanted to. They entered my room and were going through my stuff. I took my phone out and started recording from a small opening in my door, and went with the party as nothing happened. After a few hours, when it was only immediate family, all my friends had left, I noticed those 3 getting really uncomfortable and quiet and seemed like they wanted to leave early for obvious reasons. And they started to gather their things, when I stopped them and asked them to return my things or I will manage a sias. They, like any foolish person, started to act like they knew nothing and accused me of lying. I showed them the recording and said that I had already sent it to everyone there and just need to switch on Wi-Fi for it to get uploaded. And still they lied, so I did what a bad person would do. I sent everyone the video, and after a few minutes there was crying, shouting, cursing and whatnot. They still refused to give them back, saying that they need them and we could just throw a few bundles of notes and get them back. While all this sighs, I had already seen if they had anything in their jeans pocket, and no, they were empty. No, I didn't check the pockets by opening them, but they would have been visible like a bulge since they are bulky watches, so the only place possible they could have been was my EK sister's handbag. I didn't wanted to buy, had to snatch it, and drop all the stuff on the floor, and there they were, almost $12,000 worth of accessories like watches, rings, bracelets and chains. She got mad and tried to gather stuff around, but her younger sister stopped her. She has become one of favorites since then. I quickly picked up all my stuff and went to keep them in my room and locked the room from outside. Those three by now had become mad and were crying and left the house immediately with the rest of family. Aunt had been apologizing, but it wasn't her fault, so I can't accept that, and politely told her, and she respected my choice. Surprisingly, all my being on my side, my mother had been saying that I was wrong to snatch her purse and take out all stuff and go through it, as girls has personal stuff. I think I didn't do anything wrong, as my stuff was more precious to me than their dignity in the family, but still, was I in the wrong? Story 3. Yellowstone Security Guard from Hell. So, this was last year 2022, I'm a 31-year-old white man from eastern USA, was given a job as a tour guide driving visitors across Yellowstone National Park. My job is a very serious one, as I have to drive buses as I give my visitors a tour of the park. It was a 6-month seasonal position. I am 31-year-old man being given a room at a dormitory in the middle of the wilderness. I did enjoy my job and exploring the park. For the first time, I got to see wolves, grizzly bears, and bison. It was amazing to see geysers for the first time too. I made a lot of friends as I explored the park. As a tour guide, I had to get a good amount of sleep, in order to drive a bus full of visitors. But there are employees in the park that are either housekeeper, servers, security guards, retail, and office workers. They did come to the park to party in their dorms and not take their job seriously. But I did. Anyway, back to the story. It was 8:30 p.m., as I got in my bed, there were drunk people in the hallway shouting and blasting music while drinking. I was in bed trying to get some sleep because I had to do a 10-hour tour. From my bed, I shouted at them to quiet down like 2 times. They eventually did, left the building, and I was able to get to sleep. 30 minutes later, I suddenly woke up with loud pounding at my door. Some guy was shouting security. A security was banging on my dorm door. He was banging so loud as if I committed a crime. As a person with autism, I freak out at things relating to police or bullies. Sadly, this guy was both. It was difficult to answer the door because I was not really dressed. I shouted to wait, but that caused him to bang even louder and scream security many times. Panicking, I rushed to get my clothes. The banging of the door and the screaming from the security guard was hurting my ears, and I was very frightened. I told him to wait and stop as I was getting my clothes on, but that made him angrier and more, continued to bang on my door harder. Everything was shaking. He was screaming and then switched to a roar. I was panicking as I was trying to get dressed. I finally got dressed and answered the door. My heart stopped. My legs became jello. I couldn't breathe. All because of what was in front of me. That security guard was a giant. We will call him Moose. His head nearly touched the ceiling of the hallway. His body was all bulky with extremely thick muscles. His head was bald, typical for a security guard, I suppose. He roared that quiet time is at 7 p.m. and roared a warning to be quiet. He even roared at me to answer the door whenever he knocks because he roared that I took too long to answer him. I couldn't speak to him as I was scared out of my mind. I just nodded and said yes sir, just so he can go away. He stomped away, out of the building, and I was shaken and teared up. Long story short, I did not sleep well at all. My tour was not a good one and needed a load of coffee to do my job. Moose was terrifying. He should never have been hired at Yellowstone if he treats people like that. What a horrifying night! I told this to my friends the following day. My friend Michael believed that the partygoers decided to call on me as a prank because I wanted to sleep, and they did not. I was just wanting to sleep, and they wanted to make my night miserable, which they succeeded. Michael was a former security guard for a hotel before and someone complained to him about a guest being loud. When he got there were no loud noises, so he figured that they wanted to get an innocent person in trouble for fun. Which was what happened to me. So, after that night, I tiptoed into my dorm and make no sound, fearing he would come back. I even make sure my clothes are on before going to bed. I didn't have a roommate yet and eventually did a week later. I just traveled to different buildings to hang out with friends, even got my own roommate who I became best friends with, eat cafeteria food, worked out as I try my best efforts to avoid another confrontation with Moose. Eventually, he got fired and moved out of Yellowstone and I was able to spend the rest of my season exploring and working as a tour guide. So, based on my personal experience, Ida. Story 4. Art buyer thinks they are entitled to copyright. For all you out there that produce creative works, photography, fine art, writing, etc., you will relate. I was a freelance fine artist for over 20 years, and was fortunate to be successful. I sold my work through numerous art galleries and art shows. I had just signed a contract for some, very, limited editions of some of my works with a publisher. Fast forward a month later and I am at a very prestigious art show. I knew which piece was my strongest and I was not surprised that it sold almost immediately to very prominent person in the community. Somehow as the night progressed he learned that prints were going to be made of this artwork, my assistant, gossip, doesn't matter. He came to me demanding that I cannot make prints of this artwork. I tried to explain to him that if my prints expanded my market his investment in the original painting would increase. He was red in the face almost screaming at me that he wanted his original painting to be the only image in existence. I took him aside and explained that the creator always owns the copyright to the image. While we may sign contracts for others to reproduce our work with a commission involved, we still own the copyright. Kicker, I told him A, I could refund his purchase money and put the piece up for sale again, or B, he could pay me to sign over the copyright for this one painting to him for $1 million. Guess what? I gave him a dose of reality, he went through with the purchase, and now has the frustrating further entitlement of bragging about how much his original painting is worth. Sometimes you take what you can get, but it was satisfying in the moment. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.